Revenge Office Stories. The seatbelt sign was still on at 30,000 feet when my boss, Mark, turned to me with a smile that never reached his eyes. He leaned across the aisle, his voice a low hum that tried to sound friendly, but just came off as nasty. "Lisa," he said, "we need to talk." I pulled out an earbud, the music I was listening to fading into the drone of the jet engines. We were on our way to the Global Tech Summit, the biggest conference of my entire career. In less than 24 hours, I was supposed to walk on stage, accept the Innovation of the Year award, and give the keynote speech for a project I had poured the last 4 years of my life into. The Odyssey Project. It wasn't just a project. It was my soul in the form of code and strategy. "What's up, Mark?" I asked, still feeling that little buzz of excitement. This was it, the big moment. His smile tightened. "The board has decided to go in a different direction with the strategy division," he said, his words cold and clinical. "Your role is redundant. Effective immediately. Redundant." The word just hung there in the air between us. Ugly and bizarre. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. It had to be one of his terrible, tone-deaf jokes. But his face was a mask of pure corporate indifference. My phone buzzed in my hand. Then again. And again. I glanced down. The first email was from HR, notice of termination. The ones after that were a digital execution. "Your access to the corporate network has been revoked. Your corporate email account has been deactivated. Your key card access has been terminated." Every single ping was a door slamming shut, locking me out of the life I had built. I was fired. Not in an office, not even on the phone. I was fired in a metal tube 7 miles above the earth, with nowhere to run, no one to call. I couldn't even stand up and scream. The humiliation was so total it felt like a punch to the gut. He chose this exact place, this exact moment, to professionally assassinate me. He figured that by firing me in the air, he could land with my success in his pocket, ready to claim my victory as his own. He had no idea he'd just set in motion a career-ending catastrophe. His, live on stage for the whole world to see. To really get the depth of his betrayal, you have to understand what he was trying to steal. 10 years ago, I started at Innovatech as a junior analyst with a head full of ideas. The company was fine, but not remarkable. I saw the potential. I didn't just work hard. I was the first one in and the last one out. I gave up weekends, holidays, and relationships for this job. My life was a long string of, "Sorry, I can't, I have to work." 4 years ago, I pitched a concept everyone said was impossible. An AI-driven logistics platform that could predict global supply chain disruptions before they even happened. They called it a fantasy. The board was skeptical, but I fought for it. I built the models on my own time and created a proof of concept with a small team of people who actually believed in me. I named it Project Odyssey because it felt like a long, dangerous journey into the unknown. And it worked. It didn't just work. It completely transformed the company. We started landing clients I used to dream about. Global Corp, a giant that never gave us the time of day, signed a 9-figure contract because of Odyssey. I was the face of the project. To our clients and to everyone inside the company, I was Odyssey. This conference, this award, this was supposed to be my coronation. Then Mark showed up. He was hired 2 years ago from a flashier competitor. He had the right resume, a polished smile, and a love for corporate buzzwords. At first, he laid the charm on thick. "Lisa, you're a rock star," he'd say, dripping with fake admiration. But then I started noticing little things. How he'd rephrase my ideas in meetings to make them sound like his own. How he'd wedge himself into my client emails, positioning himself as the guy in charge. The first huge red flag came during a board review. I presented data predicting a downturn in a specific market and urged us to pivot. In front of the CEO and the entire board, Mark, who hadn't even read my report, openly mocked my findings. He called my data pessimistic and my conclusions alarmist. He had a slicker presentation with rosy projections, the stuff they wanted to hear. They sided with him. 3 months later, the market collapsed exactly like I said it would, and his optimistic strategy cost the company millions. He never apologized. He just called it an unforeseeable black swan event, and somehow took credit for the damage control measures I'd already put in place. Project Odyssey drove him crazy. It was the one success that was entirely mine. He couldn't steal it or diminish it. The award and my keynote speech were clearly eating him up inside. He couldn't stand the idea of me being in the spotlight. I also knew something he didn't think I knew. His division was being quietly audited after that market fiasco. He was on thin ice, and he desperately needed a massive public win. He needed Odyssey to be his. So there we were on that plane, the final piece of his heist. As I sat there, stunned, he had the nerve to lean over again. "Company policy," he said, pointing to my laptop bag. "I'll need all company property. Laptop drives everything." My entire presentation was on that laptop. The final version, my speaker notes, the videos, everything. I looked at him, and the full picture of his plan clicked into place. This wasn't just a firing. It was a mugging. He was going to walk onto that stage and give my speech. Numbly, I handed him the bag. A few minutes later, a flight attendant who had seen the whole thing came over. She leaned down and put a small bag of cookies and a glass of water on my tray. "Here you go, Han," she whispered. "Looks like you could use this." That small act of kindness in the middle of such calculated cruelty is what broke me. A single tear rolled down my cheek. He glanced back, a flicker of smug victory in his eyes before turning back to study my slides on my laptop. He thought he had already won. Walking off that jet bridge felt like a mile-long trek. Every happy face in the arrival hall seemed to be part of a world I was now locked out of. The initial shock started to morph into a pure, white-hot rage that burned away the tears. Oh no, he was not getting away with this. I found a quiet corner and sank into a chair, my body shaking with fury and adrenaline. I thought about the last 4 years, the sleepless nights, the thrill of a 3 a.m. breakthrough, the faces of my team. Mark wasn't just stealing a PowerPoint. He was stealing our collective victory. But he made one huge, arrogant mistake. He assumed my power came from my job title and my corporate email. He didn't get that my real power was in my head and in the relationships I'd built. He'd stolen the box, but not what was inside it. Before I tell you exactly how I turned his big moment into a public execution, make sure you subscribe. If you've ever been betrayed or had someone try to steal your credit at work, you're going to want to see this. And drop a comment below telling me your story. I read every single one. My first move was a gamble. I walked over to the conference registration hall, my heart pounding. I gave my name to the woman at the desk. "Lisa Hayes," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Keynote speaker." She tapped on her keyboard. "Here you are," she said, sliding a badge toward me. "Wow, the keynote. Congrats, it's going to be packed." I stared at the badge. Lisa Hayes, keynote speaker. It didn't say Innovatech. It just had my name. And it hit me. The invitation, the award, the speaking slot, they weren't for the company. They were for me. Mark's brilliant plan was built on a lie. He thought he could just step into my shoes, but the role was tied to my name. He fired me from my job, but he couldn't fire me from being me. A cold, beautiful clarity washed over me. The rage was still there, but now it was focused. It was fuel. I found a business lounge, bought a Wi-Fi pass, and pulled out my personal tablet. He had my work laptop, but he didn't have my personal cloud backups. And he definitely didn't have the files from that secret audit of his division, the one a friend in finance had quietly CC'd me on, detailing Mark's mismanagement and the millions in losses he'd tried to hide. I wasn't going to remake the speech he stole. That was a celebration of Innovatech, and Innovatech had just betrayed me. No, I was going to tell the truth. I started building a new presentation from scratch. This one wouldn't just be about the success of Project Odyssey. It would be about the rot festering inside the company that claimed to champion it. I pulled charts from the audit report showing a clear pattern of financial negligence tied directly to Mark. I found the emails where he called my predictions alarmist and put them right next to my dated warnings. This wasn't a celebration. This was a reckoning. Next, I made 2 calls. The first was to a tech journalist I knew named Jessica. "Jess," I said, "I have a story for you. It's going to break at the Global Tech Summit tomorrow. Be in the main hall for the Innovation of the Year keynote. Trust me." My second call was even bolder. I'd seen the massive booth for Aperture Dynamics, our biggest competitor. I knew their CEO, David Chen, by reputation, a real visionary who valued talent over politics. I walked straight to their booth. I had no company, no business card, just my new badge. I asked to speak to their head of talent acquisition. Minutes later, I was in a private room with 2 of their senior VPs. I didn't tell them everything. Not yet. I just said, "My situation has unexpectedly changed. I'm the mind behind Project Odyssey, and I'm now a free agent. I'd like to talk to Mr. Chen." I told them to watch the keynote tomorrow. It will be a better demonstration of my value than any resume, I promised. They were intrigued. We set a meeting for the next afternoon. Walking out of that booth, I felt a shift. I had walked in a victim. I walked out a strategist. Mark thought he was playing chess, but he'd just knocked over the board. I was playing a whole new game, and he didn't even know it had started. The next day, the main hall was electric. Thousands of people, industry titans, VCs, engineers, press, were packed in. This was the main event. I wasn't in the front row with the Innovatech execs. I was backstage, hidden in the shadows, my heart beating a steady rhythm. I had already spoken to the conference organizer, Maria. I showed her my termination email and pointed to my name on the schedule. "There's been a hostile corporate maneuver," I told her. "He's going to try and present my work. All I ask is that you don't let security stop me when I walk out there." She looked from the email to my face, her eyes flashing with outrage. She gave a single, sharp nod. I saw Mark on the side of the stage, soaking in the admiration for a victory he hadn't earned. He was wearing a new, expensive suit, playing the part of a visionary. The host walked out, and now, he boomed, "the 2025 Innovation of the Year award goes to Project Odyssey from Innovatech." The company logo flashed on the giant screens. "And please welcome to the stage to accept the award and deliver our keynote, the head of strategy at Innovatech, Mark Stanton." Mark strode onto the stage, a smug grin plastered on his face. He walked to the podium and placed my stolen laptop on it. "Thank you," he began, his voice smooth. "Innovation is not a destination. It's a journey." My words, the opening line I'd spent weeks perfecting. Hearing him say them felt like a punch. He clicked to the next slide, my slide. As he started talking about the initial vision, I made my move. I walked out of the shadows and into the stage lights. A murmur rippled through the audience. Mark's voice faltered. He looked up and saw me. The color drained from his face. His smile dissolved into pure shock. I walked right up to the podium, leaned into the second microphone, and said, my voice ringing out in the now silent hall, "Thanks, Mark. I'll take it from here." He just froze, a statue of stolen valor. I turned to the audience. "Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Hayes." I paused. "I am the architect of the Odyssey Project, and the presentation Mark was about to give is based on a lie." I reached past his paralyzed body, unplugged his laptop, and plugged in my own drive. The Innovatech logo vanished, replaced by a black screen with 5 white words. Project Odyssey, the real story. "For the last 4 years," I began, "a team of the most brilliant people I have ever known poured their lives into this platform. What Mark was going to show you was their success. What I'm going to show you is the truth." For the next 20 minutes, I gave the speech of my life. I didn't just talk about code. I talked about character. I put the chart from the internal audit on the screen, showing the millions of dollars in losses from Mark's division. A leader's job is to see the future and guide their team, I said, bringing up the next slide. It showed my report predicting the market collapse right next to his email calling it alarmist. A bad leader ignores the map, then blames the territory when he gets lost. The sound of keyboards from the press section was a roar. Then I told him everything. The reason I'm telling you this, I said, my voice dropping, is because yesterday afternoon at 30,000 feet on the flight here, Mark fired me. He fired me so he could stand on this stage and claim my team's victory as his own. A collective gasp swept through the hall. My former CEO's face went from confused to horrified. He looked like a man watching his company burn down in real time. I ended my speech with a slide showing the names and photos of every single person on the Odyssey team. This award doesn't belong to a corporation, I said, my voice cracking with emotion for the first time. It belongs to them. The room was silent for a beat, and then the applause started. Not polite clapping, but a thunderous rolling ovation. I walked over to the stunned host, gently took the award from his hands, and held it up. I walked off stage and right into David Chin, the CEO of Aperture Dynamics. He had a huge smile on his face. Lisa, he said, shaking my hand, that was the single best job interview I have ever seen. My office. Monday morning. We'll have a contract ready. The fallout was immediate. Hashtag Innovatech Implodes was trending before the keynote was even over. Jessica's article hit the web 30 minutes later. Mark was escorted out by security. My old CEO was forced to resign less than a week later. As for me, I took the weekend off. For the first time in a decade, I just breathed. And on Monday morning, I walked into Aperture Dynamics as their new vice president of innovation. My first order of business was to call every single person from my old team and offer them a new home, a place where their work would be celebrated, not stolen. The best revenge isn't watching your enemy burn. It's building something incredible on the very ground they tried to bury you under. It's proving that you were never just a part of their story. You were the story. And now, you get to write what happens next.